So one of the biggest questions that I get asked is, will my squeegees lock on my pull tip? So what we're going to go over today is what is the best pull tip for your extension pull. How many times a day do we do this? Okay, so let's go over a bunch of different tips and the best tip overall for all tools, and just some basics to teach you how to properly put your squeegee handle on your squeegee extension pull tip. Let's go. Okay, so you may not think this topic is important, but it comes up a lot, and it's just odd that it comes up a lot because we think of like extension pull tips to be such a simple thing. Now, when we talk about extension pull tips, we have the Unger, right? And the Unger, I'm going to talk most about the Unger. I like it the most, but you know, we have Unger on a aluminum pull as well, just like this. They can come off of the tip by pushing here, and then you can put them back on. They're a little bit hard to get back on sometimes and get them, but they just boom, like that, stuck. So then we have Ettore. I have all the Xero Pro Trad tips. That's what I have here instead of having them all on the pole. So taking the tips off. We have famous wood tip, and that's usually threaded on to an Acme thread so that you guys see this. So that's usually on something like that, like Garlic poles. The top of pretty much all extension poles will have that, like here, right? Sorry if you hear the air, it's super hot, so I have the air conditioning on. And then some other interesting tips are like the Mr. Long Arm tip. You can put this on like Garlic poles. You can put this on anything, but I usually use it on Garlic poles or Mr. Long Arm, of course, and it actually does a really good job on holding the tools as well. So that kind of just looks like that. Okay. And then you have Dr. Engel. This was a demo one, but Dr. Engel, I don't suggest this one, so we're not really going to talk about this one. I don't like it. I have a review that you can check out about it, but I just find it to be a flimsy tool. But I like the shorter version. I think the shorter version is really, really good. And even though you have a Euro tip here, it still fits tools. So even though it's a Euro tip, it still fits all the handles on there. So that's nice as well. But we won't really talk about that too much. And then we also have wagtail. Okay, wagtail arm has been out forever, ever, as long as I've been in window cleaning, and that will usually be used with a wagtail like so. Not a huge fan of it. I don't really use it, but it is a pull tip. And then there is the Mormon pull tip, right? So that's Mormon. And then we also have tips like this with a Euro thread. They can go into usually carbon fiber poles that you can use as trad poles, and that's a Euro tip. Most of the time this is meant for water fed and brushes. Not a lot of tools will work with this and be like, usually it's just this that's out of the top. So all there is that, and it's not, you can't attach a tool to it, okay? So most of the time these are used for water fed. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because a lot of people ask, hey, how is my Ettore squeegee handle gonna lock onto my Unger tip of my extension pole? Here's the thing. Okay, so yes, if you buy an Unger tool for an Unger tip, you're gonna be able to use the lock, right? So that's gonna lock on like that, okay? If you buy, so just see how that goes in there in case you are just brand new to this stuff. It just locks in like that. You unlock here and you twist off, right? So it keeps your tool on there very, very snug, okay? But if you were to have an Ettore handle like this, they have this little, I think they call it a quick lock or whatever there. So that little pin for this hole. So this works with most Ettore handles. Does it work with the brass? I haven't used it in a long time with the brass. It does work with the brass, there right on the side as well. So with this one though, it just goes, kind of press it down there and boom, locks right into there. So your tool won't come off whatsoever, okay? That's also for like, they made the Ettore backflip be able to do that now. So pretty much if you buy an Ettore tool, it's always gonna work with these. Same thing with Mormon, right? Mormon, they have the little blue clip there, and that, this is a super old one, that's gonna go into that hole, okay? So if you buy the same brand as the pole, it's usually always gonna fit. I don't see why it wouldn't. Wagtail, theirs don't lock. I believe this is just made for like a lanyard if you use it for high rise, but this is extremely snug though, as far as being on there. When it's on there, it's not gonna come off. You really have to use some strength to get it off, okay? Now, here is why I kind of talk about this, is that you really don't need the same brand tip for the same brand handle. So, Unger and Ettore. So what you actually do is you put the handle on the side so that that little clip just holds it on. It's so snug on there, this isn't gonna come off on the pole. And if you really wanna just crank it on there, you can. It's not gonna come off when you're using it. The only tool, I don't know why I don't have it here, but you guys see me use it a lot, that comes out pole tips easier is the actual actually, let me go grab it. That'll just help the most overall. Let me grab it for you guys. Let me grab it. One moment. Okay, so ledger like this, these are the ones that are hard. And that I use it now with an Unger tip. I would suggest a wood tip as well. But these, when you get them up high and they hit a ledge, they can come loose pretty, like I can hit it in there snug and just take it out like that. Now, wood tip with these is the best because you can really just spin it in there and get it worked in there. And if you almost get them wet, it almost even works better. And that will be your best thing for ledger handles overall to keep them on. So I'd always suggest having a wood tip. Now, if you put the wood tip, sorry, it's a lot of tips, but a lot of time with all these, so I can give you a lot of tips as far as this will go on here. But what you'll find is that this will start bending when you use it for poles, for straight poles and different stuff. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. I would try to keep it with something like this, where this goes, you know, deep into the pole up to here, so that there's just this part out of the pole, and that keeps it pretty snug overall. But overall, I use Unger the most just because it works with the most tools. I find it to be really snug and I find it to be strong. That's why I use it. I have broken every single other thing except for the wagtail, but I've broken Mormon, Ettore. I only had an Ettore reach pole for 2 days and the tip broke with just doing straight pulls, so I've never gone back to Ettore. I never even liked the Ettore reach poles. I found that the collars just didn't lock up very well and were super hard to unlock during the winter. So overall, I haven't used that this much. I haven't used this that much at all. But the nice thing is like everything works with Unger. Cobweb duster, okay? It doesn't lock, but it's super tight, right? So it's not gonna come off. So basically, my goal of this video is just to show you that it doesn't have to lock on like I've shown you with the certain brand to brand. It just needs to be snug. And your best tip for that is the Unger tip. So like people always ask me, do the Mormon handles work with the Unger tip? Yes, they do. They're not going to lock, but they are crazy snug. This is what I've used for years, and I've never ever had this come off unless it's my error of any kind. So they hold on extremely, extremely snug. So I wouldn't worry about that. IPC Techno Pad. I believe this one actually locks if this thing would engage. But you see that right in the hole there. Wagtail. Perfectly fine. Snug. Not going to come off. Okay. Let's do Ettore. So this is an Ettore handle. That fits on fine. So it's just basically this thing holding it snug. that's all this video is about. Sorbo handles, snug. Sorbo handles actually get pretty tight to the Unger, especially. The one thing I would tell you though that is kind of sucks is that wood tips don't work for everything. Like wood tips with Unger handles suck. Like, just so you know that. They just don't work. So what Jim always taught me is you cut it at an angle and that will work a little bit better. But wood tips and Unger handles just do not work out well. But like wood tips with Ettore, they work fine. Wood tip though will be your loosest. If you use a lot of like rotation tools like Mormon accelerator, stuff like that, I wouldn't suggest using a wood tip. So there's my kind of tips on tips for poles and extension poles. But pretty much I would just go with the Unger tip if you're going with a pole. If you're going with like a trad pole, go with the Unger tip. If you want to get an aluminum extension pole, I would always just suggest the Unger Optilock pole, to be honest. I think it's just the most universal and well-rounded for the tools that are out there. So I hope this helps you in figuring out what is the best tip for your squeegee handle. And know this, no professional handles have any sort of threads on the bottom where you twist this on. There's nothing like that. You might find something like that at Home Depot or something like that, but no professional handles will thread onto a tip whatsoever. So there's my tips for today as far as looking at that stuff, and that's basically it. So hope you guys have a good one. Peace.